Join me every month for the inspiration to find your finish line. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Find Your Finish Line, presented by Curad Performance Series, the official medical supplier of Ironman. I'm Mike Riley, your host, and this podcast is not only about you being able to find your finish line at an event or at a race, but also in life. We have to find that every day, don't we? I'll be talking with successful people from all backgrounds about their inspiring stories in both life and in sports, and how they overcame some stuff, how they are and where they're at today, and hopefully it'll inspire you to be the better you. Well, there he is, our guest. Hello, Lionel Sanders. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Mike. How are you, man?
I'm great. Lionel hails from Canada, but you're in Tucson now, aren't you?
We are in Tucson, yes, and we actually sold the Canada house. It closes on June 25th, so we'll be here, as far as I can tell, for a while.
Well, is the Canadian market as hot as the California market? There's no inventory, so houses were selling fast.
Yeah, actually, where I'm from in Windsor, you'd never believe it, but I think a lot of people are selling their houses in Toronto and moving to Windsor, about 3 hours south. So it's literally our house doubled in value in 4 years. So it was kind of, I have this place here in Tucson, not going to that place there. So it made sense.
Well, good for you. Yeah, I grew up in Toledo and Detroit, and we'd go up to Windsor to party. I think I told you once before.
Sin City of Canada.
I swear, I thought, you'd say, oh, I'm going to a different country. But it was really like you were going to Germany. It seemed so far away, but yet it was so close. So All right, well, congratulations on your Ironman 70.3 North American Championship St. George win. It was a spectacle. It was something to see. I've seen a lot of finishes at races over the years, and I've seen a lot of people, go down and but I swear, you look like it was all over. Yell, get me the oxygen. I can't breathe anymore. I can't. You're laying down on the ground with Sam Long. That had to be an experience where digging that deep this early in the season, did you think you could go there?
Well, to be honest with you, I've never fallen on the ground at the end of a race ever in my entire career. I almost fell in Kona 2017, but I caught myself.
Yes, you
so
did.
That was my first time ever falling. So, that should show you how I've done, 100 pro races or so, and I've never fallen, but this time I did. So yeah, I took myself to the limit. Well, Sam took me to the limit. I didn't really want to go there, but he took me there. And it's one of those things. I don't know if I'm still processing it. When you go, literally, we pretty well swam together, biked together, and ran 13 miles together. And no one wanted to give anyone an inch. It's something that I'll never forget, and it's the reason why I do this sport, really. I mean, the ones where you win easy, it's good for your sponsors and stuff, but you don't really get much out of it, and the ones that you have to work for, and even sometimes you come up on the losing end, those are the ones that you cherish forever and that make you a better person on the other side.
Yeah, and I've talked to so many great champions that talk about their second and third place finish at a particular event because they dug so deep in the well, and they were very proud of themselves. So it's not always about that first place, but when I watch and ran in the past and marathon, people would say, oh, the guy was with me and I put a surge in. But it wasn't like you and Sam were surging one another. You were just both running an incredible pace.
I mean, I felt like I was sprinting for like the final 3 miles because he truly, he says he's the best downhill runner in the sport, and I would agree with him. And I really had to take myself out of my comfort zone because he came by me with about 6 miles to go, right around halfway. And he went by so fast, it was like, oh, wow, the race is over. That's it. Fortunately, though, we had a turnaround, and then we had to go back uphill. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that must have been a surge or something, because then I got back in. I actually started to put a gap into him. But then I started to notice on all these downhills, the speed with which this guy could take the downs was absolutely amazing. And I think maybe a little piece of me with hindsight, because I had been dealing with this for the last year or so, a little bit of tendonitis in my knee. I think a little piece of me was being very cautious. So then I basically said, I mean, if you want to win this thing, you can't have any caution whatsoever. So once I got that through my head, and I really lengthened out my stride and just let gravity do the work, then at least I was able to catch or hang on with him. But it truly took me out of my comfort zone, like in every facet of the comfort zone. And I felt like I was sprinting. Fortunately, hearing him, do a post-race analysis after, he was sprinting. So I don't feel so bad about it. It just panned out the way it panned out. We went through an aid station with, I don't know, half a mile to go. And I was like, obviously I'm not going to take a drink. Like, what's the point in taking a drink? And he took a drink and a little gap opened up. And it wasn't because I did anything. It was just because he, slowed down ever so slightly to take a drink. And then, I felt that gap open. I didn't do anything. And then when he didn't close the gap, then I was like, well, maybe this is the moment. And so then I put a little pressure on and the gap opened a little more. And then I truly did lay down the all out. I had nothing left. And I just went as hard as I possibly could. And I rested for ever so slightly through this roundabout with about, 300 meters to go. And I kind of looked out of the corner of my eye that he was at the beginning of the roundabout. I was at the end. And I was like, he could close this. This guy is so good at running downhill that he could close this. So I had to just keep going as hard as I possibly could. And fortunately, the finish line wasn't too far away, because if it was, I was probably going to collapse before the finish line. But fortunately, we made it to it.
Well, I have to tell you, it was a beautiful thing to see. And when you see two warriors like that battling one another, and it's almost like you wish you both could come out on top because of the effort that was put in. But it was a fantastic race, and congratulations again. If you don't mind,
thanks,
I'd like to go back a little bit. I'm not one to talk about the past a lot, because I always believe our best memories are the ones about ready to come for us. But you went through a tough time, because I get a lot of messages from people and athletes about, they're going through a tough time. A lot of them are addicted to this or that. And what ends up happening is they try to find something else in their life in a positive nature. And it's well documented that, you went through addictions and were living a lifestyle that, you knew in your heart wasn't the lifestyle you wanted to live, but it was what was around you. And all of a sudden you decided one day, go for a run. Did it click that fast? Because some people tell you, oh, it took me 2 years to do this and do that. When you were down in the dumps and not knowing what your future was going to be, some reason, did you find out or say in your mind, my future might be just go for a run, let's see what happens?
Oh, that's a long story. You're going into the depths of my of my mind. That whole thing started off very innocently. I was just a kid partying, really, and I didn't think anything of it. And I went down that pathway, and at some point, and I don't know when that happened, it switched from just, having fun and partying with your friends to a negative aspect, to a negative thing. Like I was starting to kind of drain my sorrows in a way. I started to feel insecure with myself, and I just went further and further down that pathway into that lifestyle. And really, I was just medicating. At some point, I was just medicating myself, and the only highs I was getting in life were highs from substances. And that when you're there, that's not good. Yeah. And I went down that pathway for several years, and that's where I ended up. And fortunately, I had remembered experiences that were positive that didn't come from substances. And it just so happened that running was one of those things that I had fond memories, something that I was competent at. As a youngster, I was competent at running, and I did track meets and cross country, and I had, small success, and, made me feel good about myself. And so I think that's why when I was kind of, down in the dumps and having no direction, I think that's why the natural thing that popped into my head was to go for a run. And I did that on November 5th, 2009. And I went, and it was night, I was severely social phobic and didn't go outside during the day. And I went for a run at midnight through a graveyard. And it was just, it was like a transformative experience. And, things don't happen overnight, of course. I still was living in these environments. I still had a lot of negative influences around me, but that was definitely the beginning of the change. And basically a month went by and I ran, pretty well every single day for a month. I don't know why, but I logged all this stuff strangely. And I still have that old log.
Wow.
And I was running like 5 kilometers a day for approximately a month. And I still, I was definitely getting better, but I still felt like I needed more. And then that's how Ironman came into my life. And I had this weird idea to do an Ironman, just popped into my head and Googled what it was. And then, fortunately my mom gave me the credit card. I told her I have this crazy idea. I want to devote myself to doing an Ironman triathlon. And she said, you really think you can do something like that? And I was like, I know it doesn't seem that way right now that I could do that, but I think if I devote myself to it, I will be able to do it. And I think it's going to take me where I want my life to go. And so then I signed up for the race and really I've been following that journey ever since.
That is, the amazing part about that story, what's remarkable to me is you remembering that exact date, because we go through life obviously remembering birthdays, anniversaries, this and that, because they're important to us. But that probably, I'm not, because I know Aaron, your wife, is in the room, the second most important date in your life. Yeah, I've been married 40-some years. It was about 5 years ago I started figuring it out. So,
oh, wow. That's pretty good.
Yeah, good luck. So that date is something that it's almost like you should have it tattooed on yourself. You don't, do you?
I don't, but you know what? What's funny is my coach, my swim coach, also has had battled with addiction and things, and he has a date that's very meaningful for him tattooed on himself. And I have this tattoo right here. Actually, it's like from like when I was in like grade 10 or something. It's just my friend did it in his basement. And I thought, I always, it's this bad tattoo. If you can't tell, it's a hand-drawn tattoo. But I always thought, I want to keep it, but I want to add something to it to remind me, the reckless abandon or whatever of when you're younger. And that's actually a really good idea to add that. That would be a really cool to make that a more meaningful tattoo. So thanks for the idea. I think I'm going to do that.
Well, what's interesting is people use different types of drivers every day to get out of bed, to go do that big workout, to try to win, to do well at their job. And sometimes drivers are tattoos. Sometimes drivers, what do you think your number one driver is? To do what you're doing today. What's inside? What's burning inside Lionel that says, damn it, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go do better today than I did yesterday? What's that driver for you?
That has changed over the years. In the beginning, in November 5th, 2009, what woke me up was, I want to get out of this place as fast as I can. I want to go in the opposite direction of where I am right now as fast as I can. And that was my driver for a long time, actually. I would say probably 3 years. And there's books written on it, like, positive addiction. I basically replaced a negative addiction with a positive addiction. But over time, I started to realize, I don't necessarily want to be addicted to this thing, because what happens if I lose this? What happens if I'm unable to do this? Am I going to go back to that negative addiction? And so then I started to have to, do introspection and find out, how do I do this in such a way that if I am unable to do this anymore, that I won't go back, and I've made good, mental changes and physical changes in my life that will keep me on a good path forever. And so that's probably actually what created the next series of motivators. And for me, it happened actually, interestingly, in St. George in 2014. It was my third pro race. It was also the North American Championship. You had Jan Frodeno, Brent McMahon, Tim Don. You had all the best guys then, all in their prime too. And I went to it thinking, I'm going to contend with these guys. And that couldn't have been any further from the truth. I got 18th place, 10 minutes off the pace. I got beaten in all 3 disciplines. It seemed like there was no way that I could ever contend with these guys. And I had that experience. It called into question, what am I doing this for? Because I felt like a complete bag of garbage, to be honest with you, after the race. And I went for a run out in the beautiful Red Rocks in St. George with my mom. And I basically said, has triathlon really become this for you? Like, you feel bad about yourself right now. Like, it's actually become negative in a sense. And I said, you need to fix this right here and right now. And so literally out there running with my mom, I came to this conclusion and I fixed it right then and there. And I said, from now on, you only do this to do your best. And on the day, the only thing I ever want from you ever again, no expectations whatsoever, other than to give me your best on the day. And I don't care what it has nothing to do with your place. It has to do with, even if you screw your nutrition up, get a flat tire, go down the list, I still want you to do your best and finish to the best of your ability with the cards that you're dealt on the day. And that right then and there, my perspective changed, and I've followed that for the rest of my career. A weight had been lifted from me, and now I would say that is my motivator. That is what's driving me. Is I haven't given this endeavor my all. I've had glimpses of giving it my all. I've had great seasons, great performances and stuff, but I still haven't put it all together and done my absolute best and dotted the I's, crossed the T's. And so now that's the pathway I'm on. That's the journey I'm on. And you learn about yourself, and you learn, you need to put certain safety valves in so that you don't make certain mistakes. I have this tendency, for instance, to go off on these tangents. And I did that a few times. And so I had to hire my coach, David Tilbury Davis, to basically be the bird's eye view and make sure to analyze all the things I'm doing so that I don't go off on these tangents. And, even for instance, in Daytona, we did a race in Daytona in December, and I wore like I shouldn't have worn this suit, and I had just made a couple of errors. And so what's the safety valve we put in place? Well, now before every race, I have like a checklist. I have to basically submit the week before the race every choice I'm making, the suit, the tires, go down the list, my nutrition strategy, everything needs to be submitted. And then after the race, you do a post-analysis, and did I do everything that was on the list that was submitted and approved? And so anyways, these are all the safety valves, and you learn these over time. But that, I'd say, is what is motivating me now, is to just do my absolute best. Not in like a corny sense or something, just like truly give this sport, if you're going to do it, devote yourself to it and do your absolute best and see where you can go. And if I can win Kona, then great. And if I can't win Kona, but you did your very best, then I'm fine with that too. No problem.
That is a philosophy I think is going to take you long beyond your racing years, Lionel, because life has these segments in it. And we're in a great segment right now, but 10 years from now, you'll be in another segment. And if you have children, to be able to pass that on, there's nothing better in life. But I do have to say something to you, because I know another motivator is your mom, Becky. And she did St. George. I was shocked you didn't slow down and wait for her. That would have been the greatest excuse in the world. Hey, my mom's doing the race. I get to run with my mom in the race.
We did that. We did that in Boston once. Boston 2017. We actually we started together. I did my long run for like 20K, and then have you done Boston?
No, I have not.
It's a really cool race. Yeah. There's they give out freezies and stuff on the side. So I ate freezies for like 15 minutes. Then she caught up to me, and then we ran the final 15K or whatever it was together, and it was a great experience. But she would get very mad at me if I waited for her. I can tell you that. She's pretty into this stuff too, and she would not approve of that.
Yeah, she'd say, "What the heck are you doing?" Yeah, she'd be yelling at you.
Yeah.
Hold on, everyone. We'll be right back after a message from our sponsors. Even after 40 years on the microphone at thousands of events, welcoming hundreds of thousands of athletes to the finish lines, I am still in awe by the incredible endurance of each and every athlete and what you display. The physical exertion, the sweat, and the challenges you put your body through deserve a level of support that match your dedication. As the official medical supplier for the Ironman US Series, Curad Performance Series lineups of wraps, tapes, bandages, supports, and braces give you, the serious athlete, and weekend warriors alike, the optimal support needed to keep moving, including new far infrared kinesiology tape technology, which reduces energy made through body heat, back to targeted areas to help you heal faster and enhance performance. So don't you let sprains and muscle pain hold you back. Recover smarter and shop the entire Curad Performance Series on Amazon. Hey, I want to go back to the two events in my mind. Obviously, the second in Kona was a spectacle. That was just something else. But it was 2015 when you went under 8 hours at Arizona. Then you came back in 2016 and went 7:44. And I thought, you know what? He's here. Yes, it's a flat course. The competition was good. But when you turn out those kind of times, is it a part of your career where you go, all right, I just went 7:44 and I broke 8 hours and maybe I'm doing the right things. But then all of a sudden life throws you a curveball and you go, well, I can't go sub 8 hours again. How do you deal with that mentally?
Yeah, I mean, that really is what we're talking about, right? It's like I was on this good pathway in 16. Yeah. I proved to myself, I had gotten in great shape for 70.3 Worlds in 2016 and then had an okay performance there and then did Kona that year and it was horrible. And I was like, I learned a big lesson because I did nothing but speed. And then I was like, the theory is I just need to convert a bit of this speed to endurance and I should be able to do a really fast Ironman. And so then I literally, that's all I did was just do some endurance stuff for like 5 weeks. And then I went to Arizona in 2016 and I did my lifetime best all around performance really in terms of like brute numbers. And it was all clear to me then. And so then that began 2017, which was my best season I ever did. And I went toe to toe with all the best guys in the world that year. And I won everything except 2 races. And it was one in second in St. George to Alistair Brownlee, who I don't feel super bad about finishing second to him. And then that second in Kona, getting past at mile, whatever it was, 22 or 23, the brain doesn't remember much of it, but it was somewhere out on that run course. And yeah, it was all so clear. But I mean, this is the human aspect of it. It was like, I like to call it like second place syndrome because it was like, instead of just like you got beat by like 0.5%, over the course of 8 hours, you got beat by 0.5%. So instead of just finding, a couple of 0.25% here and there, just making little tweaks and coming back and doing it again, instead I was like, okay, we're going to change everything. Okay, David Tilbury Davis, no, you're gone. Sorry, I can do this myself, guy. I went and raced Jan in Oceanside in 2018 and didn't have a great performance. And then I was like, okay, we got to change everything about the bike. Even though I'd had the fastest bike split in like most of the race that I had done over the last 4 years leading into that, let's change everything. Frame size, tires, wheels, pedals, power meter, every single thing. Let's change all that. Go down the list. These are the things, this is the second place syndrome at its finest. And this is the human nature aspect of things. It's like an insecurity almost. And so I went down that pathway for like, I went to Kona that year and couldn't have been, I came in as like the top contender, you know what I mean? I had made it, 23 miles and got past at the very end. I couldn't have been anywhere near a contender when it happened, the race in 2018. I mean, I was so far off the pace. And then I got a stress fracture in 2019, which was like the insult to injury. And then I was chasing a Kona slot. I literally got the last Kona slot available in Mont Tremblant in 2019. It just was not an ideal situation. And went to Kona once again, have no business really. I really should not even have done the race that year, but I just couldn't resist. But anyways, you learn lessons, right? If anything, you'll learn lessons. And so I learned a lot. And right after that Kona 2019, a humbling experience. I really feel like I was nearing death. I was like 17 pounds dehydrated. It was like, one of the worst experiences of my life. I called David Tilbury Davis back and I was like, hey man, I'm sorry. I'm an idiot. Will you take me back? And so we started working together again. And then I just started to realize like, this is not that complicated. We can overcomplicate this if we want. Just do the basics really, really well. Obviously, you need to have good equipment, good aerodynamics, but the guys who are winning, the guys who are consistently the best, Jan Frodeno, for instance, Sebastian Kienle, another very consistent performer, they just do the basics really, really well. They train really well, really consistently, and they show up on race day in good shape, not overtrained or anything, just in good shape, firing on all cylinders, hungry, and then they execute on race day. And I think it's you're trying to like, especially when you're younger, you know what I mean? You don't have a lot of experience in the sport. You try and like reinvent the wheel and like, it's like, these guys have been doing this a lot longer. you ain't going to do anything. Like, you're not going to figure something out that these guys haven't figured out, that Ferdinand hasn't figured out. At the very best, you'll know most of the things he knows, and you'll be able to do the things he does. But that's about it. So that's kind of was the pathway, and that's kind of the conclusions anyway I came to over that little speed bump there.
It's almost like that. The Lionel talking to Lionel happens more than you talking to anybody else, because you have to go there, because if you don't and you can't solve your own problems, then nobody else can do it for you.
Yeah. You need, I think this goes for just about anyone. You need someone kind of third person looking in, analyzing what you're doing, because if you don't have that, then if you go down a pathway, you're like, oh yeah, this is a good idea, right? But you don't critique yourself, right? And it's like, you need someone looking in saying, like, had I had David on my side in 2018 after Oceanside, one of the things, for instance, was I switched power meters. That power meter read 30 watts higher than the meter I had used the year before. So I pushed the same power that I did the year before, but it actually was 30 watts less than I pushed the year before, which all of a sudden, now you do the numbers on that, all of a sudden now I'm catching Ferdinand in 2018 in Oceanside, and now we're running toe-to-toe like I had imagined, and which made sense to me. Now all of a sudden I don't screw the whole season up. Do you know what I mean? It's like these types of things, these lessons that someone more impartial looking in can analyze and see and say, whoa, why would you change all this stuff when literally it was like a user error type thing. And let's go to another race before we change everything, and find out if this is true that you've suddenly regressed several years, or maybe we do need to go and change everything. But at least, you have someone critiquing those types of decisions. And I think that's very important. Right.
Well, you've been a part of the sport for a good amount of time, and you've seen a lot of things on both sides of the fence, with the pro side, the age groupers, the business of triathlon. And as you know, the men's and women's dynamics and roles in sport is changing, and workplace, everything's being redefined. How do you think the sport of triathlon is doing with the diversity side and making sure that we're all encompassing, because we all want more people to come into our sport from no matter what backgrounds? How do you think our sport is doing? What kind of grade would you give us?
We're doing good from an inclusivity side, absolutely. I've never really been to a triathlon and felt like every triathlon I've ever been to, I felt, arms wide open, welcome. I've never felt any type of elitism or anything like that in a triathlon, fortunately. Unfortunately, it's expensive, very, very expensive. And that, obviously it's good if you make your money from the industry, obviously, as I do, it's good in a sense, but to make it bigger, to make it a mainstream kind of sport, we need to figure out ways to allow more people entry into the sport. And so for future, how can we figure that out? How can we get more people into it and I guess bring down the barriers to entry? That's kind of something for our future development we need to figure out. And I don't have the answer for that. So
I don't know if anybody does, but working on it hard with all the factors together is probably the best answer we can give right now, which a lot of people are. So tell us about the PTO and what you think they're not only doing for you as pros, but for the sport itself, Lionel.
Yeah, the PTO's been great. I mean, it's been a long time coming. I think one thing that seems to be changing, and I see it in my own, like for instance, in our YouTube channel, that the last couple of races we've done like a race week series, and something that I think was the case for quite a while. It was kind of like, because the pickings are so slim, we're all kind of against each other. You know what I mean? Yeah. And we're all fighting for the scraps. But unfortunately, because it's only scraps, we kind of have to band together, and we kind of have to look at it as we're kind of one unit, the pros. And so that I believe is what the PTO has kind of come in and said. You guys got to stop thinking about each other don't get me wrong, on the race course, we are individual entities. But the sport is so small, relatively small, that professionals need to come together and be, sort of a voice of one. And so that, and I do believe the PTO, I've seen it, because like I said, in my YouTube channel, guys are much more interested and coming onto the channel and doing guest appearances. And even you came onto the channel and did a guest appearance, which I thank you for. That was our best. Man, that was gold. You had some gold on that one.
He got me coming off a workout. I loved it.
Yeah, it was great. You had the Gatorade chest and everything. It was great. Couldn't have been any better. I couldn't have planned it any better. But that's what the PTO, I believe, is the mission. Of course, you know, what is the business model? What is, like, where are we headed? We don't know. I mean, we don't really know. I see that there's an appetite for professional sport just through my own, like, I can only speak from my own experience. And you know, our last series with St. George, we had, I think we're over 600,000 views in whatever, it was a week ago or something. Yeah. We have 600,000 views, which, I mean, we're not doing, you know, some of these YouTubers and stuff you see is insane. This the viewership, but I mean, it's a niche-y kind of sport, you know, and it's not like a mainstream type sport. Now, do I think that it couldn't be? Do I think it could be? Absolutely. We have all the makings of if cycling is on TV for 3 weeks every summer, there's no reason why we can't have 4 or 5 triathlons on the TV every year, and people be really interested in them. So I think it's just a matter of figuring out, like, what does this look like? You know what I mean? Now that we are sort of coming onto the same page, and we're all talking and we all want to make this bigger and attract more people and get more people into it and make it better for everybody. You know, we just have to keep going down this path that we're on, and PTO's doing a good job. Ironman's doing a good job too. You know, St. George was excellent. We had a live stream of the race, which is excellent. I think it's good. We need more of that. I think we've had a role in that. You know what I mean? I think Texas was also a really good race. There was no live stream. I think a lot of people were mad that there was no live stream, and all of a sudden there was a live stream in St. George. So I think we're moving in the right direction. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. Like it's taken us, however, what is it? We at 40 something years Ironman. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen overnight, but I think we're moving in the right direction. I think all parties are starting to listen, are starting to see the potential. And we just need to keep working towards making this bigger and attracting more people. And as we said, bringing down the barriers to entry, so that it can be one day, a truly mainstream sport.
Yeah. So Lionel, what do you do when you want to relax and it's after a race and there's a week after a race? What's Lionel Sanders do? I mean, you just lay around eating bonbons, or you what do you do?
Well, I used to see in 2018 and 19. Here's another thing that should have been analyzed. I was getting into golf. I was getting into golfing.
That's right.
And I had the Canyon guys come out, and I told them, like the head sports guys come out, and I told them, oh yeah, I like play golf 3 times a week or something. Like 3 times a week. These guys see pro athletes of all different sports all the time. They're like, playing golf? Aren't you a professional triathlete? How do you have time to be playing golf, and the mental energy? And it's just a complete waste of time, really. That's what it seemed like they were thinking. And it took me a couple of years to figure that out. I was sucking at golf and sucking at triathlon at the same time. So you can only focus on what you can only do. Can only do one thing well, which happens to be the combo of 3 things, but I can only do that well. So I had to get rid of the golf. So now, after the races, I do like to go play a couple of rounds of golf and still be horrible at it, but, be better at triathlon anyway. Well, so that's usually what we do.
Or it could have been a thing where you didn't want to suck at 2 things at the same time.
Exactly. That's what was happening.
I'll just do that one thing. I love it. Hey, who's you have a mentor or somebody you look up to, or people you talk to that set you straight? I'm sure your mom is one of them, but we all have those people in our lives that set us straight. Do you have that type of?
Well, my mom and dad have a very close relationship with, so they always, if I have things that I need to discuss that I don't know the answer to, whatever mental type decisions, then I definitely go to them for the feedback. My wife, of course, she gives me the feedback unsolicited or solicited. And then David Tilbury Davis, of course, he's my mentor. He's my coach. My good friend Talbot Cox, who does all of our YouTube stuff. I always bounce ideas off him. And then from an athletic standpoint, who's had the biggest impact on my career in terms of information exchange and value, I would say Sebastian Kienle. He's given me like many, many times. He's given me just, one sentence, but has like literally a lifetime's worth of knowledge in the sentences. And, the most one that I remember, I was at the Oakley House for the first time. I think it was Kona 2014, maybe 15. But, I thought it was so cool. I got invited to the Oakley House, it's like, oh, finally I'm making it. And Kienle was the guy before me. And so, I had never met him before. And we talked for a second. And then as he was leaving, he said, "Hey, Lionel, stop doing an Ironman every day." And I was overtraining so insane that year. And I literally had done 10 4+ hour bike rides that everyone was between 300 and 330 watts average for 4 hours. So all my best Ironmans that year happened in practice, not in races. And he just gave me that little tidbit, and it transformed my thinking that it's like, okay, so if Kienle's not doing this kind of stuff, then maybe I shouldn't either, as he's probably the most consistent Kona performer of anyone. And then he was the champion in 14. So he from a informational standpoint, he's had the biggest impact, and then obviously Jan Frodeno from a motivational standpoint has had the biggest impact. I don't know who wouldn't answer Jan for their motivation standpoint.
Yeah, well, no kidding, and it's interesting because what I find so refreshing about our sport, Lionel, is the top professionals. Well, sure, you're competitors, you're going after one another, it's mano a mano, you want to win, you want to come out on top. But it's amazing the information they share with one another and how cordial everybody really is, and can have those conversations and then go to battle the next day. I just love that about our sport.
I think it's very unique in that standpoint. It is very, as you say, it's like a gentlemanly type sport. Mm-hmm. Of course, when the gun goes, I mean, it's these guys want to kill you. One notch under wanting to kill you. You know what I mean? Like they want to kill you without touching you. That's about it. But yeah, it's really cool. After the race, I did Miami with Jan, and it's the first time I really got to like have some time after, and we chatted for probably an hour, and it was great. And he's a really great guy, and I get why he's huge. I get why he's so good. All these things, and yeah, I can't think of too many sports where the guy who just beat you, who you want to, literally I've devoted my entire life to trying to beat, where you sit down and chat and talk about training and life for an hour afterwards. I can't, I mean, I don't do any other sports, but I would imagine that's not too common. So I think that is a really cool thing about our sport.
It is. It's very cool. Have you read a book or anything lately to motivate you? Do you like to read?
I love to read. I am reading a book right now, and it's funny that you say that because it was, what is the title? It's Mastering the Basics, basically. That's the title. It's like a Zen book.
Oh.
But as we were talking about, as the lessons that the main lesson I've learned over the years is this is not that complicated. Just do the basics right, and you will do really, really well.
Well, maybe on the bottom of that tat right there, we could put "Master the Basics."
I need that one up my forearm just so every day I'm looking at it.
Okay. I've been doing 3,000. Okay, no, slow down on the watts. Master the Basics.
I would put, if I were to get one on my forearm, I think I would get which I wouldn't, but if I was going to get one on my forearm, I'd get limits are created in the mind. That's what I would put.
Limits are created in the mind. Well, I read something else you wrote too about, of having an addiction and pulling yourself out of it, that in the end, you're going to become even a greater human than you were before when you went into it. It's almost like some people have to experience that low so that they can have the higher highs. And I think you exemplify that, and it's honorable, and it's something that we all look up to. It really is, Lionel.
Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. I mean, I wouldn't recommend going down that pathway. I think you can learn everything you need to learn without, going down to those darker places. But, you can't regret, what's the saying? You don't regret the things you do, you regret the things you don't do. So, I try and live by that. And yeah, I mean, I try and find the positive of some of the decisions I made in the past, and I try and right those. I influenced a lot of people negatively back then, and I have regrets about that. And I've tried to go the other side. It's been the motivator on the other side of it to try and influence people in a positive way. So for better or worse, that's where I'm at, and that's how I'm wired.
Well, it's a good wire, let me tell you. Our last question on Find Your Finish Line, I call it tri-table racing. In the off-road racing in the Baja, I've got friends that, race the Baja. They call it bench racing, where you sit around a picnic table or the bench or the kitchen table after the race and you reminisce with other people that did the race. A lot of age groupers do that. And obviously you sat down with Jan in Miami. So give us a memory of an event. It could be funny, it could be sad, it could be something you saw on the race course. You go, what the hell was that? It could be anything. Give us a memory of a race as if we're reminiscing around the table.
Oh man, Mike, I've had so many fun experiences. I mean, I start from the beginning. I've had so many fun experiences, so many great experiences in racing. I mean, this sport is my life. It's changed my life. I mean, that Kona 2017 finish line was pretty cool. When I saw Patrick at the finish, and I remember such a weird, just shows how we're all wired differently and what motivates us is different and what makes it fun and cool. And I remember I had no negativity whatsoever. I crossed that finish line and I saw Patrick and I just was shocked full. Like, I don't even know how to describe. It wasn't anger. It was just like pure adrenaline. And we embraced and we hit hands and hugged. And I remember just looking at him thinking, I just want this guy to punch me in the face right now. Like, honest to God, that's what I just wish he would punch me in the face right now. Because if he did, I'd be like, again. And that was that. But that was what I was feeling. That was like where I was. And it was just the closest thing I think to like pure adrenaline that a human can experience. I was experiencing in that moment, and I just wanted him to transfer energy to me in some way, and that seemed like the only way it could be done. So I don't know. He probably is like the complete opposite how he felt, but that's how I was in my head. So that's a weird story.
But it's a good weird. It's a good weird story. I love that. I do remember the embrace and you coming in and. Yeah, when two people come in like that, first and second, it's almost like they both have won, and the crowd is just in adoration of it, and you know that feeling. So hopefully one day I'll be calling you in number one. No.
It don't matter if it happens, Mike. I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm gonna keep giving my life to this and do my absolute best. And if it happens, it happens, and if it don't, it don't. And I'm gonna enjoy every minute of it either way.
Well, there's no better philosophy than that, Lionel. So, hey. I know you're busy. I know you're training. I know you're doing so many things in your life. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on this podcast and giving us your time. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be inspired by your stories so that they can move forward to be a better them.
Well, thanks, Mike. And I wish you the best in the podcast, and I'm going to be tuning in regularly.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. Take care of yourself.
Cheers,
Aloha.
man.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining me on Find Your Finish Line, presented by Curad Performance Series, the official medical supplier of Ironman. Wherever you watch a podcast, you can pick this up. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, or my website, MikeRiley.net. So, hey, keep in mind, we have control over one thing and one thing only. That's our attitude. A lot of other influences try to come our way. Push them away. Take care of your attitude. It'll take care of you and get you to your next finish line. As always, everyone, my warmest aloha. Take care of yourselves.